Welcome to today's episode of True to Form with your host, president and co-founder of Crystal Clear, highly regarded speaker, and two-time Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Tim Sawyer. True to Form is a podcast that highlights leaders making headway in the aesthetic, anti-aging, and elective medical industry. Learn from the experts to discover the secrets of success and pitfalls to avoid when growing all aspects of your elective medical practice. This week's episode is brought to you by Candela, a leading US-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications, including hair removal, wrinkle reduction, tattoo removal, women's health treatments, facial resurfacing, traumatic and surgical scar treatments, body contouring, improving the skin's appearance through the treatment of benign vascular and pigmented lesions, and the treatment of acne, leg veins, and cellulite. Please join me in welcoming your host, the authentic, the transparent, Tim Sawyer.
Hello and welcome to True to Form, the podcast that connects you to the people, technology, and hot topics that shape the elective medical community. Provided to you by Crystal Clear and brought to you by this week's sponsor, Candela, the leading US-based medical aesthetic device company. I'm your host, Tim Sawyer. To our returning guests, welcome back. And for our first-time listeners, we appreciate you joining us and encourage you to become a subscriber. In the last episode, we spoke with returning guest and owner of Spa 35, Warren Danforth, who talked about the emotional element behind why aesthetic consumers buy. If you missed it, you have to check it out. And so as we travel the country, finding the top aesthetic providers in the world, we landed right in my backyard in Rhode Island. Someone who I've known for a while, I've got to meet personally, lives just a little bit down the road. She's got a lot going on. Dr. Simpson is the CEO, physician, and medical director of CMIS Med Spa. Since 2018, she is dedicated to her practice of medicine and developing unique, long-lasting relationships with her clients. Dr. Simpson is passionate about involving her patients in their own care and educating them about their overall health and wellness. At CMIS Med Spa, with much focus on preventative care, facial balancing, and body contouring, Dr. Simpson uses techniques involving multiple modalities, including skincare, body contouring, neuromodulators, dermal fillers, skin tightening, and resurfacing to help women and men achieve their best revitalizing results. A native Rhode Islander, Dr. Simpson lives in East Greenwich with her husband and 4 children. Dr. Simpson, welcome to the program.
Hi, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure is all ours today. So the first question I have, we have a unique situation. Dr. Simpson and I both live in a state that only has 1 million people, but has kind of seen a little bit of an explosion in aesthetics practices recently, yours being the leader. But talk a little bit about your journey from college to the ER and now to med spa owner. What's that been like for you?
So I grew up in New York and then moved to Rhode Island when I was quite young. My mom was a physician as well, so we kind of moved here during her residency. And so I was raised in this very small state, and I left when I was 18 and swore never to come back. That, like any Rhode Islander, like everyone knows, that promise never, ever works. So I went to school kind of all over the country. I did some research in Washington, D.C., and then out in San Francisco. I then got reunited with my husband, who was actually my high school boyfriend, and I came back to the East Coast. Wow. So, I decided that, you know what, my mom's back here. It would be a really good opportunity. So after I finished med school, I ended up at Brown University Women and Infants Hospital, where I practiced obstetrics and gynecology for the last, 18 years. So wow. I've been at a couple of hospitals in Rhode Island, community hospitals in the area that I practice now, as well as the tertiary care centers up in Providence. Yep. And, Rhode Island is my home. And I said, it was time to kind of come back and to really offer Rhode Island services that other states that I've lived in, California, New York, and Massachusetts, offer people. So I said, why not kind of just come back and practice in my own hometown?
I think that's awesome. Well, I'm curious. So you're cruising along, you're a doctor, things are going good, you're educated. At what point did you say, I don't think I have enough to do. I should open a med spa.
So the point came, well, I had my fourth child and I was working, over 120 hours a week doing OB, and I loved it. I loved being with well women and practicing and operating and doing all of that. And I finally said, all of these people, are aging with me. They, once they were my obstetrical patients, then they became, my kind of life patients. And they were asking me all the time, I feel like I'm getting older. I'm exhausted. I'm a mom. What kind of things can I do to feel better? And so I started to say, well, how can I really incorporate well women and well person care so I take care of the whole body, not only the insides of a person, because preventative medicine is fantastic. But in reality, once I was doing kind of just normal gynecologic care, I saw these women once a year. And so I said, I really want to maintain these relationships with these women. So what better way to do it than to start really talking to them about, their skin and about looking younger and about things that they can do, after their moms to feel better and to feel like they're a whole person again. Because, as you well know, and your wife knows, children, they take a lot of your time. And so really, when I had my fourth, I said, I need to not only dedicate my practice of medicine still to take care of, women and men, obviously, but also I need to take care of my own kids. And so I had to really kind of revalue my life and say, how can I better balance, my own life, still be true to my own practice of medicine, but kind of offer this so that I can spend more time with my family. So that's where starting a business, of course, was, the next logical thing. So that's kind of how I came to the journey where I am now.
Good for you. And I know I'm also really curious because Rhode Islanders sometimes have a different perspective on things. But I know you spend a lot of time, particularly on the aesthetic side, going to national shows and participating in those conversations. And I think I've met, realistically, not even 5. I can't say 5 people from Rhode Island, and I went to 40 shows last year. So there's just, you don't see that, or they don't come by and see me, I guess. And so I know you're you put a lot of time in that, but I'm curious, when you thought, I'm going to start or purchase a med spa and aesthetic practice, has it been what you thought it would be, or was it kind of like more or less kind of thing? Tell us about that.
It's been so much more than I could ever have imagined. I am a kind of a chronic learner. I should say that. I need to constantly further my own education, or at least challenge my brain in some way. And so for me, I got so comfortable practicing obstetrics, practicing well women care, that I said, I need to actually, really start to educate myself in different ways. And I am, as you well know, a very global learner. I mean, I traveled all over the place. I love seeing how different people do things in different scenarios and in different areas, and not only the country, but the world. And I feel like there's so much more education to gain than you can get, just by going to school. Real life offers a huge amount of education. So, for me, traveling and going to these shows and meeting new people and just really going to different practices everywhere has allowed me to grow exponentially. And, having this new challenge of practicing medicine in a business atmosphere is a totally new challenge, because they don't teach you this in medical school. They don't teach you this kind of in an everyday life scenario. So it's really been very, very educational for me to study, new practices, to learn business, and to really kind of combine the science of medicine and the beautiful arts of it all, as well as the business elements. So it's been an extremely life, altering experience that I've been very satisfied with to date. So I would highly recommend it to someone who needs a challenge.
But you said that you don't, and it's true. I mean, we talk about that all the time. You don't get a lot of business. I've always thought that when people are going through medical school, there should be one little track that says, okay, there's going to be 2 classes. If you want to open a private practice, this is what you need to do. Or one course on that, something, right, that you could get through your education. But so you didn't get that, although you've gone and got it now. But I also feel like your personality combined with your medical background gives you a little bit of an advantage, because you mentioned science a couple times, right? So you're applying science to the beauty element or the aesthetic piece in your practice. And would you feel that's an advantage for you? Talk about that.
Yes. I mean, first of all, I love people, which is kind of a benefit in medicine. I think certain types of people go into medicine and different parts of medicine for different reasons. And I absolutely, I actually love working with women. I love working with teenagers. I love working with more difficult populations sometimes than other, people may like. So I love the element that you can teach through the education of, beauty. You can teach the education of wellness. You can teach through, educating people about what's normal and what's not normal, so that people actually have a realistic expectation for what they should expect with going through, their teenage years, with acne, with issues with their skin, with going through pregnancy, with going through menopause, with going through just normal everyday life. They can really have a realistic expectation of what to expect. So I think, combining that education piece with my love of the practice of aesthetics is truly, it's key. I think you can't just love one part of the medical aspect of it. You can't just love the business. You can't just love the medicine. You really have to be passionate about all of these elements to really make it work. And it takes a lot of energy. It takes energy. It takes time. It takes patience. And I think learning that balance is key in this field, because this field is growing, in leaps and bounds every single day, and figuring out what's going to work best for your practice, figuring out what is best to purchase, figuring out what is best to teach people, and which, are the elements that you feel are the most scientifically based, because there are a lot of practices out there. And I think determining what you believe in and what you feel is the most scientifically just is super important to be able to speak to your patients about.
I agree. And you also went through a little bit, so you can tell you have a passion for this, and I want to talk about your marketing strategies in a minute. Before I get to that, I do think you've got a really relevant lesson for our audience, in that you purchased an existing medical spa. And I think
yes,
it's almost trickier to do that than to start new, in some cases, because a lot of times, particularly if you've got a med spa that's, the person who works in the med spa, that's the med spa, right? I mean, they all want to see that person. And so can you talk a little bit about the transition from, okay, this person, they're getting to a point where they want to sell this, I'm going to buy it. And then the effort that you go to keep the existing customers, it seems like that's an enormous thing. And then make it yours versus what it was, right? So how did that transition happen for you?
So I did buy an existing practice that had a set cohort of patients that were very true to the practice itself. And myself coming in, I was first the medical director for this provider, and then it transitioned into me buying the practice. But we were very different people, practitioners, education levels. Everything was very different. So I think that the rebranding was a very big deal. And I think you're right. I mean, I think people came to a practice because of the provider that had been servicing them for, almost 10 years. And for me to be someone who's new, different, and kind of to jump into this practice, I think it was a challenge, because I think some people were like, well, I don't know if I, can take on a new person. I don't know, what that trust element revolves around. And so I think earning people's trust and respect and remaining true to the quality of care that they had been used to, if not elevating it, was extremely important, part of building the practice. And I think it was something that I realistically went into. I didn't expect 100% retention.
Yeah.
I think I hoped for the highest level of retention possible. I tried to maintain the standards of care that I felt were, exemplary, as well as elevating them by increasing the services I offered, by taking on some more providers in my practice to help me, because also realizing you can't do it all by yourself is huge, but not growing too quickly and kind of growing slowly and building from there.
And in terms of growth, I'm really curious about this too. Your marketing strategy, which I love, the stuff you're doing on social is spot on. Really everything. The site looks great. You're doing some amazing things. But like you said, you didn't have a lot of training in marketing. So what was when you thought about, hey, we're going to rebrand this and we're going to do some things differently on our social pages and otherwise, where did you go for that? Who did you lean on? Was that just something you said, I got to do it and we're going to do it and that's it?
No, I did not. It's not something that comes naturally to me. I'm not a millennial. I don't, fall into the social platforms, as easily. I mean, I definitely didn't learn any of marketing strategies in medical school either. Yeah. And so I think that I relied on a couple people. I mean, I originally started with Crystal Clear. You guys gave me a fantastic, platform to start from. I then branched out into doing Instagram and Facebook, and really, truly, though, the whole time being true to my brand and saying that, you know what, I am not going to put up something that's not me. And I'm not going to exploit myself or the industry. I need to really believe in this to put it up. I don't believe that filler should just be put up just to put up something. I think that you really need to be true to who you are and to really remain who you are and to stay true to that brand. I mean, I think that's kind of the clearest way to say it is, you may not be the hottest thing on social media. And again, it's a constant popularity contest. And I think that that's not what's important. It's serving your audience, it's serving your clients, and, being truthful about these things and putting up your own pictures, putting up your own, procedures, putting up your own real life experiences so that people realize that you're a person. I mean, I'm a mom of 4 kids. I cook. I love to be outside. I love to have healthy food. I love to integrate that with skincare, with procedures, and I think, keeping who you are is very important in this industry because you can change so easily that I think, staying set to your principles is pretty key, and acknowledging change is constant. I think is also the other key, is really evolving and changing, with the times, and keeping, making sure your space looks beautiful, making sure you are going to trainings, making sure that you are spot on as far as your technique and your newest technologies, and really making sure you are marketing to your population and not to a population that's, 10,000 miles away, or that's, 100% 16-year-old, teenagers. You need to really say my brand diversifies among all ages, and these are the people that I'm really looking to show who I am to.
You said something. The reason I love doing podcasts with people like you, really everybody, is I always learn something on every call, and on every podcast. And now having done 65 of these, it's been a blessing. But you said something that's really cool, because I think it gets lost in translation sometimes. So you have who you are, your true authentic self, and your principles, and then you have tactics. And what you said is dead on. Who you are as a human and how you portray that to the world has to be consistent. The principles have to remain the same. Tactics change. Technology changes. Mm-hmm. Techniques can change, but not the core of who you are as a human and the brand of CMIST. And I give you a lot of kudos for coming to that conclusion on your own, because I think it gets lost on a lot of people. And they think, well, I'll just give whatever the hottest, fastest, greatest thing is, I'll just do that. And then they're in this spiral of chasing, and they never catch it. And so I think it's pretty cool that you're doing that. And particularly in an industry that sometimes will challenge us. And I say to people all the time, I'm like, you don't need 50,000 people following you on Instagram. You need 2,000 people following you on Instagram who can buy stuff from you. Right,
and who are going to come to your place. who are going to come and see you.
Exactly. Give me 500 of
Yeah.
those people, and that's the most valuable Instagram following you could ever get. And so, and you see sometimes big practice or even small practice chase these big numbers. It's like there's not even 100,000 people in your town, and they've got.
Right.
So I think you're 100% on. I would be remiss if I didn't ask quickly. I don't want to spoil the mood because this is great. But COVID, was that what was the net effect of that? Was Rhode Island had a shutdown, right, for a little bit?
Yes. Yeah. So for a little bit, for 4.5 months. So it was a huge deal. So I still practice at the Tertiary Care Center doing obstetrics.
Yeah.
And so I was working, night shifts doing that because they needed physicians. They needed people. I felt like that was the actual reason why I went to medical school, is to actually help people. And so I continued doing that. However, from a business standpoint, my business basically went to a screeching halt. St. Patrick's Day was like, one of my favorite holidays, became like one of the most memorable days because we had to shut down. And we did it a little bit prematurely because we never wanted to have a reason that we had to do it. We wanted to do it prophylactically to say, listen, we want people to be their safest and to do all of that. However, we, like everyone else, had no idea how long this was going to last for. And so we had to come up with a ton of different strategies. So I can briefly kind of describe what we did, to survive and to excel as a practice during this is, we started a whole new e-commerce site. So we redid our whole site. And I mean, by we, meaning we did this without a media company. We had to learn how to use Shopify. We had to make sure that we rebranded our products. We put them up on a new platform. We had them photographed. Like, we did everything brand new because we wanted to kind of revamp in this time of rebuild. Yeah. And, this rebuilding period was both, mentally and economically and everything, where we said, we're going to sell a ton of stuff online so that we keep up our clientele, so that we keep on social media. We tried to post things that were relevant, but that weren't, always before and after, because that gets tiring after a while, and to post real life things that were happening. We also did some, sales where we pre-sold a lot of our services, knowing that we were very comfortable saying we were going to open when the time was right. And we then prioritized who we saw first. We saw all the people that pre-bought, that were our loyal clients. And we prioritized them in order of, those kind of things, so that when we reopened our door, it was packed. And I am very thankful for that. I'm super appreciative to our clients for their support and for them staying loyal and, really remaining with us, even despite this, shutdown for 4 months. So, we're doing fantastic. So it's great. Yeah.
Yikes. But listen, sometimes you gotta go through it, and
yes.
And I feel there were a lot of people. Now, 2 more questions, and I want to talk about what's coming up for you in the back half of 2020. So, you're out and about in Rhode Island. You probably see this better than I do. Have you seen a proliferation in the start of new med spas in terms of competition in the state, or is it kind of flat, would you say?
I would say not really a huge uptick at this point. I think there's been some that have shut down. I think they're the ones that are still maintaining are hopefully still seeing the same loyal clients. I think the thing with competition is you're only competing with yourself. Never compete with someone else, because it's just, first of all, if you're extending that energy competing with someone else, you're not focusing on your own practice.
Right.
So I'd say that I'm very supportive of, my friends and colleagues that have continued their spas and that are, prospering. I think that that's fantastic. And, focusing on my own brand has taken up enough energy that I would say that I think that the people that the strongest will survive. And I think that those people who are staying true to their brands are also surviving, equally as well. So I wouldn't say that there's a huge uptick in practice, but I would also say that there's not a huge amount of closures. There's kind of a nice steady, flow in Rhode Island. And Rhode Island's pretty small. especially when you look more globally. Yes. Yes.
And that's why I give you, I can't say it enough, how much credit I give you, because, when you, at some of the national, and to your point, international stuff, it actually does give you, you've got to get out there and do it. And I always encourage my Rhode Island friends, because they talk about 15 minutes being a long drive. I'm like, well, try flying 6 hours for a 1 hour talk and then fly home. It's like,
right.
That's a long ride.
It's a lot, and it takes a lot of effort. And I think that, one good thing that COVID did for this industry is they made a lot of things virtual. So, I was scheduled to go to, Monaco, and to go, to Canada, and to do a couple of different, these international shows, and they all canceled. And it came to a screeching halt. And now all of a sudden I have my computer, which is great, because then I can do it per my schedule. You miss the socialization of the conferences and the learning, but it gave us a great new learning platform to really, jump from at this point.
We call it the Zoom boom. The Zoom boom. And there actually is there are a lot of smart people that I talk with, and on a lot of calls. And even the big pharma people, they're like, you can absolutely draw a line between the amount of screen time being spent, people staring at their faces, going, "Ooh, I got this."
Yes.
They're all rushing, going, "I have an interview. I've got a conference call tomorrow," and they've got to get down there. And it's the Zoom boom. So we love it.
It is, and the way people look at each other and look at themselves, I should say, in the Zoom camera has really had a huge benefit to some of our practices that we do, because people don't like their double chins, or they don't like their wrinkles, or they don't like, they don't like some element of the, superficial beauty, and they say, well, these are easy fixes. So now's a great time to do it, because I can cover with a mask if I have swelling, or I can, I can look better when I'm staring down at a camera. So, I think that a lot of these have been beneficial to the aesthetics industry as well. So, it's been a double-edged sword.
The way I deal with it is I close down the icon of my face, and then I've got a funhouse mirror behind my computer. Makes me look amazing.
You always look amazing, Tim. Please.
So as we wind down, I'm so psyched that you got to hop on today. So what's coming up for the Wakefield location? And from what I understand, you have a big announcement. If you want to make that, go ahead.
So we are opening our second location in Newport. And Newport is a fantastic community, which is basically an island community over in Rhode Island, and a very, very hot spot in the summer. But all year round has some, wonderful people that live here. And so we're just opening a second location in Newport to help kind of spread the love over here in the Aquidneck Island.
Wow. Now, if someone by chance is listening from Rhode Island, it's cmist.com, right?
No, so it's cmistmedspa.com. And our Instagram is, and our Instagram is at @cmist_medspa.
At @cmist_medspa and cmistmedspa.com. And if for some reason someone's listening today and they love your story and they just want to shoot you a little email, give you a shout out, is that okay? What's your email address?
Oh, please. So send it to info@cmistmedspa.com. We love hearing from people all the time.
Cool. info@cmistmedspa.com. Well, listen, it sounds like, COVID, quite frankly, sucked for everybody, but it sounds like you've got your ducks in a row. You're staying true to yourself. The practice is building, like you said. I loved your comment that your brand is getting energy and has energy. That's a great way to describe, and quite frankly, that's because of you. So
thank you.
You bring, it's just like the conversation all day. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank everybody for joining us today on the podcast. I want to thank Dr. Mary Christina Simpson for taking time out of her busy day. Not that she's got a lot going on between 2 med spa locations. She's a doctor and husband, and she squeaked us in for a podcast. So I'm grateful for that. I want to thank Candela once again for sponsoring podcast today. Anybody interested in learning more about Crystal Clear, pop by the website, crystalcleardm.com. That's crystalcleardm.com. Like you guys, we run monthly specials all the time. Get a free website, give us a call. Mary Christina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tim.
Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of True to Form, brought to you by Candela. a leading US-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications. To learn more about this week's podcast sponsor, visit candelamedical.com. And to learn more about your podcast provider, Crystal Clear, visit crystalcleardm.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show on all your favorite music apps, including iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and TuneIn to stay up to date with the newest episodes. Thank you for listening.